A new federal report shows homelessness increased in Texas by 13% within the last year, and for veterans, Texas saw a 19% spike.
The rising cost of rent means that many East Texans can no longer afford their homes and apartments. Nonprofits that offer rent and housing assistance are overwhelmed because so many people need their help.
They're all scrambling to find millions of dollars in relief money, and their goal is to find more permanent housing for more people.
Texas, known for its vast oil fields, smoky barbecue, and colossal football stadiums, is often seen as the ultimate symbol of American greatness. Big, bold, and full of opportunity. But beneath the towering skyline of cities like Houston and Austin lies a different reality, one that rarely makes national headlines. Thousands of people sleep on sidewalks, take shelter under highway overpasses, or move from one overcrowded shelter to the next just to survive the night. This stark contrast is exactly what makes Texas such an intriguing place to explore. How can a state with one of the largest economies in the country still be grappling so deeply with homelessness? Texas ranks among the states with the highest homelessness rates in the United States. Major cities like Austin, Houston, and Dallas have become something of a barometer for the homelessness crisis. Each city faces its own unique challenges, yet the core issue remains the same. Thousands of people are living without stable, safe, or permanent housing. Let's talk numbers. One of the most referenced official tools is the point-in-time count. Basically a quick census carried out every January by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. According to the most recent count in 2024, nearly 28,000 people in Texas were reported as homeless on just one single night. But here's the thing, the daily reality is far more severe. Experts estimate that around 80,000 people experience homelessness every single day in Texas. And over the course of a year, that number can reach as high as 265,000 individuals. To put that into perspective, imagine an entire football stadium packed full of people, all of them without a permanent place to call home. When you break it down, homelessness in Texas isn't just one singular experience. It takes many forms. There's what's called chronic homelessness. People who've been living on the streets for years, constantly cycling in and out of shelters, unable to escape the system. Then there are families experiencing homelessness, most often single mothers with children who end up in emergency shelters simply because they can't afford rent. And then there's veteran homelessness, a deeply troubling category where those who once served their country return home only to find themselves without one. When you travel around Texas, homelessness isn't hidden behind spreadsheets or buried in data, it's right in front of you. In Austin, for example, it's not uncommon to spot clusters of blue or gray tents under freeway overpasses or near canal banks. Sometimes they form makeshift encampments with old chairs, small tables, and even portable stoves set up like tiny, fragile communities. Move over to Houston and the landscape shifts. The city is vast, and its homeless population often settles beneath massive highway interchanges or in desolate industrial zones. During the day, traffic barrels above them, cars speeding by, while underneath, life moves to a completely different rhythm. Tents, sleeping pads, and piles of belongings marking a quieter struggle. In Dallas, a similar scene plays out right in the heart of the city. Many people sleep on sidewalks near overcrowded shelters that have no more room. Long lines form outside soup kitchens, with people patiently waiting for their turn to eat. The city is trying out several new programs to reduce homelessness, but the reality on the streets still tells a story of exhaustion and endurance.
This would not be accepted in any other part of town.
Then there's El Paso, a city with a unique situation. Because it sits right on the border, it often becomes a stopover for migrants. That means the homeless population here is a mix. Local residents who've lost their homes, and migrant families or individuals sleeping on the streets because they simply have nowhere else to go. In El Paso, homelessness and immigration intersect, making the challenges here twice as complex and twice as urgent. When it comes to the question of why homelessness is such a large issue in Texas, there's no single answer that can sum it all up. It's a complex web of interconnected factors, more like a tangled knot than a straight line. One of the biggest triggers is the housing crisis. In recent years, rent prices in major cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston have skyrocketed. Take Austin, for instance. The average cost to rent an apartment now hovers around $1,672 per month. In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the situation is even worse. This region has now overtaken Austin as the most expensive rental market in Texas, with average monthly rents at about $1,532. Houston might appear a bit more affordable, with an average rent of around $1,362, but even that requires an annual income of over $67,000 just to be considered safely affordable. Meanwhile, the average per capita income in Houston is only about $41,000. So what does that mean? For most people, paying rent comes at the cost of cutting back on other essentials like food, healthcare, and even education. Another major contributor is drug addiction. Texas has seen a more than 75% increase in overdose deaths over the past 5 years. A deadly mix of opioids, methamphetamines, and fentanyl lies behind many of the heartbreaking stories found on the streets. Addiction often strips people of everything: their job, their family, even their physical and mental health. Then there's the impact of past policy decisions, particularly from the Trump era. During that time, many programs under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development faced the threat of budget cuts. That meant fewer shelters, slower development of affordable housing, and less support for people on the brink. On top of that, the administration's law and order approach tended to focus more on sweeping homeless encampments than actually solving the root of the problem. Unfortunately, this approach trickled down to many cities in Texas. Instead of offering real solutions, it often resulted in pushing unhoused people further out of the city and into the margins without any clear direction or help. Lastly, there are other serious factors that can't be ignored. Mental health issues, for example, make it extremely difficult for someone to keep a job or maintain healthy relationships. Or take war veterans, individuals who once served their country but returned home carrying the weight of untreated trauma. A significant number of them eventually end up part of the homelessness crisis as well.
They're like, hey, the city's gonna come by here and clean out this spot, do an abatement. Like, that's gonna be in 2 weeks.
Across many cities in Texas, nonprofit organizations have stepped up as the frontline responders in tackling homelessness. One example is the Home Coalition, which has been actively advocating for more compassionate housing policies. Then there's Caritas of Austin. Not only do they provide meals and temporary shelter, but they also emphasize long-term solutions through job training programs and mental health support. In Houston, the Coalition for the Homeless has made a major impact. They've been the driving force behind the Housing First model, which has helped reduce the city's homeless population by more than 60% over the past 10 years. Houston stands out as a success story, largely because of its commitment to Housing First. This approach treats housing as a basic human need, providing people with stable homes first, then connecting them to other essential services like healthcare, counseling, and employment opportunities. And the results speak for themselves. According to a 2024 report, chronic homelessness in Houston has dropped by an impressive 63% since 2011, but not every city has followed the same path. Take Austin, for instance. The city has faced repeated criticism over how it handles homeless encampments. At one point, local officials banned tent setups in public spaces, a move that sparked protests and public outcry. Critics argue that this kind of policy doesn't actually solve the root problem. Instead, it simply pushes people from one place to another, offering no real long-term solutions. Still, the road ahead remains long and full of obstacles. Shelters in major Texas cities, especially in Dallas and Austin, are often at full capacity, particularly during extreme summer heat or freezing winter nights. On top of that, there's a policy tug-of-war. Some groups support stricter enforcement to maintain public order, while others demand permanent housing solutions as the only truly sustainable fix. Funding is another complicated issue. Not every city has the same level of resources. Houston's success is partly due to strong coordination between local government, federal agencies, and nonprofit groups, whereas smaller cities often lack that level of support and infrastructure. Drug and alcohol addiction is another major hurdle. Many individuals experiencing homelessness avoid shelters altogether because of strict rules that prohibit the use of alcohol or drugs. While rehabilitation programs do exist, their capacity is often limited. According to 2023 data from Texas Health and Human Services, only about 1 in 4 homeless individuals struggling with addiction were able to access treatment. Real-life stories from the streets reveal just how complicated this is. Some people actually choose to endure sweltering heat in tents rather than stay in shelters, simply because they feel they have more freedom and control over their lives out there, despite the difficult conditions. The homelessness crisis in Texas isn't some unavoidable fate. It's a reflection of deeper systemic failures. From a widening economic gap and an overpriced housing market to uneven access to mental health services, the roots of this issue run deep. And yet, Texas isn't without power. The state has all the right ingredients: wealth, expertise, and the policy tools to create real change. The problem is that this potential often gets undermined by unequal resource distribution and a lack of political courage to unify strategies between major cities like Houston and Austin and the state government itself. Solving this crisis isn't just about throwing more money at the problem. It's about spending smarter and with more intention. Housing should be seen as a basic human right, not a luxury or a privilege. That shift in perspective requires Texas to adopt a long-term strategy, increasing the supply of affordable housing, expanding access to mental health care and addiction recovery programs, and moving away from outdated enforcement tactics that rely on sweeps and temporary crackdowns. The good news? There's already a proven blueprint. Houston's Housing First program has shown that a data-driven, cross-sector approach can lead to dramatic reductions in homelessness. If that model were scaled statewide, Texas could finally move away from the harmful narrative that blames individuals for their circumstances, and instead recognize that a safe, stable home is the foundation every person needs to rebuild their life.